Hello, it's John Heaton, and we're in New York City in Central Park. I don't know if you can recognize the location here, but we're pretty close to the backdrop for the Milk and Honey back cover. Behind me, somewhere behind the trees there, is the Dakota, and we're on a boat, and we're precariously balanced, and I hope this video goes okay. And we thought we'd do a topical video. We thought we'd review John and Yoko's album from 1972, sometime in New York City. I picked up this original US copy a couple of months ago in Budapest. I have to say that at the time they recorded this album, they didn't live in the Dakota. They still lived down in the village on Bank Street, and we didn't actually visit that this morning, although we were very close because all the vinyl record stores are in the eastern side in the Greenwich Village area, so we were pretty close to where they used to live. And it was only the year after this album when they bought the Dakota and came to live here. And then John and Yoko lived here from 1973 up till 1980 when John died, apart from the brief 18-month separation they had in '74. I came all the way from Budapest to get away from the planes, and here we are. We had helicopters earlier, so not too bad. Anyway, so we'll give this a go. Obviously this was a controversial album when it first came out, and commercially it didn't do very well, and it was a bit of a jolt to John's career, really, and in many ways he never really recovered from it commercially, at least in the UK. The first thing to say is he'd already left England the previous September and come to live in New York, and quickly got involved with the radical crew at Jerry Rubin and Abbie Hoffman, and supporting every fashionable cause under the sun, and did a couple of charity concerts for John Sinclair and Attic Estate, both of which tracks ended up on this album. And then he decided he's going to make a whole album, and the idea behind it was to reflect what was going on at the time, but I think it ended up probably John sounding more like a journalist than an artist. So later on he was a bit critical of this period, although in 1980 in the Playboy interview when he was presented with this album he said, "Geez, it's nice to see this again." So this is you can tell the content of the album just by looking at the sleeve. It's got all the lyrics, and practically every song here is political. There's no love songs, there's no "Oh Yoko's" on here, there's not even a "How Do You Sleep," there's no reference to the Beatles. It's all what was going on in 1972 New York politics, and John was heavily involved in the movement, the left-wing movement at the time, the anti-Nixon brigade, and to such an extent that the government actually tried to throw him out of the country, and John would eventually not get his green card until 1976. So this album was made under quite a lot of stress. His phone was bugged and he was being followed, and the US government, the papers have now come out proving that he was followed, and there was a serious movement to get him deported back to Britain. But he didn't care, and he came out with this, and it was a brave album in many ways. And I'll go through the tracks, and it was shared with Yoko, and I'll talk about the second album later, which I think was a mistake, but I'm going to cover, most of this review is going to be covering the main album. So it starts off with "Woman is the Nigger of the World," which is a very controversial track, and attracted a lot of criticism, although I think the sentiment behind it is perfectly genuine and heartfelt and worthy. I think I'm right in saying it was one of the first feminist songs to be put on record. So I think John, as with many other things, he was first to do that, along with Yoko, because it was Yoko's idea. This phrase had appeared on the magazine cover of Nova in 1968, and it took John 4 years to write the song. And he said in an interview, maybe my music didn't do justice to the words. And it's not a brilliant song musically, but it's certainly very passionately sung, and as I say, very heartfelt, sincere message, which is as true today as it was back in 1972, although we've got a little better in terms of equal rights, etc. The next track is a Yoko track, "Sisters Oh Sisters," which I happen to like a lot, and when I met Yoko I complimented her on this track, and she said, well, that was down to Phil Spector. He made it sound really groovy, and I think that's right. Phil Spector contributes quite a bit to this album, probably more than he did to the Imagine album, and more than he did to the Plastic Ono Band album. I mean, for instance, on the Woman track, Woman is the End of the World, great wall of sound production from Phil Spector, and the same is true of Sisters Oh Sisters. Very catchy tune. Some people slag it off and say it's childish and nursery rhyme like and whatever, but I got a lot of time for this song. She was to do a lot worse, and I prefer her slightly more accessible songs on this album to her more avant-garde stuff from the earlier years. Next up we've got Attica State, which frankly is not a very good song, and the message is dated, and it was about the prison riots where some prisoners got killed and a couple of prison officers also got killed, but it's just not much of a song, and it's very much just chanting the chorus and pretty forgettable really. Then next up we have Born in a Prison from Yoko, which is a lovely tune, and some great harmony vocals from John and Yoko on this track. Wood becomes a flute when it's loved, etc. I love it. Next up, closing side one, we have the highlight of the whole album, New York City, in which John catalogues his experiences of living in New York in hilarious fashion, similar in a way to the ballads of John and Yoko, but here he's talking about his life in America. And here we have one of the helicopters I was telling you about. Please pass quickly. So New York City, great piano, great band on this album, Elephant Memory. A local band which John picked up, who played with him at the Madison Square Garden in August of '72 at the one-to-one charity concert, and they do a decent job, and certainly nothing wrong with the musicianship, nothing wrong with the vocals on this album. Just going to quickly show you the inside sleeve. Fit to Die, this is an Join the Army advert where Lennon had parodied by writing Fit to Die on it. This was, as you can imagine, or as I'll tell you, this was, if you don't know, this was at the height of the Vietnam War when this album came out. So anti-war sentiment, particularly among the young people, was very high. And and I don't want to get out, I didn't even bring the record to America with me, but this is the inner sleeve, and this is Elephant's Memory with Jim Keltner on drums at the back there with them. And then this album also came with a postcard, which is the Statue of Liberty, and John has just written sometime in New York City, '72. And then so I'm going to get on to side two, and it opens with Sunday Bloody Sunday, which is a very powerful song. It's about the incident in Northern Ireland in January '72 when 13 Irishmen were gunned down by the British police. And this song is unique in a way because it provoked not only a reaction from Lennon with Sunday Bloody Sunday, but also a reaction from Paul with Give Ireland Back to the Irish. It's about the only time Paul has come out with a political song, and in fact it predates Sunday Bloody Sunday, so John must have heard it and thought, I better say something as well. So I like this song. The chorus is dominated by Yoko's vocals, and some people don't like that. I think it's quite powerful. I think the drumming is brilliant, and I think the singing is awesome. And then we get The Luck of the Irish, which is a lovely tune, and if the lyrics weren't quite so controversial, you would think this was a kind of lullaby type song, because the tune is so engrossing and very pretty, but the words don't pull any punches and upset a lot of people, and quite frankly I think they're extreme and unwarranted myself. Just read you one of the verses. Where is it? Luck of the Irish. Why the hell are the English there anyway, as they kill with God on their side, blaming all on the kids and the IRA, as the bastards commit genocide. Aye aye, genocide. If you had the luck of the Irish, you'd be sorry and wish you were dead. If you had the luck of the Irish, you'd wish you was English instead. Quite fun to listen to, and great lovely tune, but very controversial words, as I say. Next up we have John Sinclair, written for the guy who got sentenced to 10 years in prison for possessing 2 marijuana joints. Hence the line in the song, they gave him 10 for 2. What else could the judges do? Love it. Great slide guitar from John himself, and one of the highlights of the album. Then we have Angela, co-sung by John and Yoko, about Angela Davis, who was an activist who got put in prison for her troubles as well, and Mick Jagger also wrote a song about Angela called Sweetback Angel on the Exile on Main Street album. Then the album finishes with We're All Water, which you can see here, and you can see a hilarious picture of Chairman Mao and Richard Nixon dancing naked here together. And when this album first came out, they put a sticker on it to so that you couldn't see the picture, and if you tried to steam it off when you got home, it ripped the cover to shreds, and Lennon was quite upset with this treatment. So that finishes the album. It's a nice track, perhaps not one of Yoko's best, but quite interesting, and I quite like it. Then the second album, for the most part, is dismissible. The first half is okay. It starts off with a live version of Cold Turkey from '69, and then after that it's a load of experimental stuff dominated by Yoko, and I really think John shouldn't have put this out as a double. I think it should have been a single. It would have sold better. I think it was the last straw when he put this out as a double, and certified its reception by the critics and the fans alike. So I think it works. I think the first disc works quite well, and I think, as I say, the singing is brilliant from Lennon, as always. The production is great, the musicianship is great, and there's a couple of real gems song-wise as well on here. So I come back to this album. It's a worthy album from John and Yoko. I think they were to do better with Double Fantasy in 1980, but nice one. If you want to force me to give this a mark out of 10, I'm going to give it a 7, because I really think it has its moments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.